Hello, everybody. And just wait a second for everybody to come in. Hi. Welcome to Genius School's Teen Quest Masterclass. It's so great to have you all join us. So thank you for your time. And I really hope you'll find this little masterclass of value. I'm Angie Stead. I'm the co-founder and leader of Genius School. And I'm here with Karen Bonanno, I should say, and Leonie McIlvenny, who are our speakers for this evening and are experts in education between them. So we're very, very blessed to have them here on the call and to be sharing their wisdom with all of us. So before we jump in and I hand over to Karen, I'll just give you some information about Genius School. So Genius School offers child-centered personalized learning pathways for students. And we actually offer learning pathways from 0 right through to end of life. However, for the sake of this masterclass, we're looking around 14 years of age and plus. So a lot of our programs virtually at the moment are for teens and preteens. So we have a number of programs. We have our camps, we have our Young Entrepreneur Academy, and we have this amazing Teen Quest program as well. So Genius School's core curriculum is around focusing on the individual genius of every single child. And we pride ourselves on igniting the genius in children. And we do that by focusing on their individuality. And our tools and programs help children to experience and really understand how special and uniquely, perfectly imperfect every single one of them is. And to teach them to develop their self-awareness, to teach them about how they think, how they learn, how they lead, to grow their confidence and really empower them to step into their genius and their unique, authentic selves. And in doing that, we are expanding their confidence, their self-awareness, and their belief in their own abilities. And that's how we empower our future leaders. We help our teens to think bigger, to look at global problems, and for them to understand that they have everything within them, in their passions, in their unique talents, in their individual abilities, to go out and solve any of the global problems they can. And they can do what they love, focus on doing what they're good at, doing what they love to do, and really make a difference in the world. And we teach also that if we focus on what were our strengths and we focus on what we love to do, then work is fun. And it's, that's where we bring out those positive dispositions for learning. And when we're enjoying what we do, we'll persist through difficulty and we'll really take on bigger challenges and really have fun doing that. And so we teach them that we're either earning or we're learning. So we take them on a journey through our promotion plan cycles very often. And we say, you're either earning money or making a difference or making a positive contribution, or you're learning something about what's going right, what's going wrong, how you can improve. And it's that journey of self-awareness as we journey up the wealth spectrum that is a really amazing thing for our young people to learn at this very impressionable and tender age. So, and let's talk too about the elephant in the room. Many people say to us, oh, well, your program's just for the gifted, or are your programs for children with particular, particular obsessions or focuses or talents, or I don't believe my child's a genius, so maybe this isn't the place for them. But we actually look at the meaning, the original meaning of the word genius. And it comes from the ancient Romans, and they believed that your genie was your unique spirit or personality that resides within your body for the whole of your life. So the word genius is derived from 2 Latin terms, meaning genius as above, and ingenium, referring to our innate dispositions, which is what I was talking about before, and our inborn nature. So tapping into who we really are and the uniqueness of every individual. And in doing that, we're blending the concepts of the divine and the talented. and we're teaching our young people how to channel that energy and those abilities and those talents into something that's meaningful and purposeful, so that they can make a valuable contribution to society. So having said that, I would really like to hand over to Karen Bonanno, because Karen and Leonie both designed the Teen Quest program. So they're the best people to share all the information with you about it and their wisdom. So Karen, I'm sure most people know you, but can you please, I'll stop sharing and maybe you just say a quick hi and introduce yourself.
Right, thanks Angie, and welcome everybody. We're looking forward to sharing with you some interesting insights, and also the way that we tackle things at the Genius School and how we approach the learning for our young people. So yes, I'm Karen Bonanno, and I have an education background. I've been involved in education for over 40 years in various roles. And then Leonie is with us. So Leonie might just do a quick intro of you as well.
Oh, hi everyone. Yes, my name is Leonie. I'm also a teacher working in the system, both government and non-government system, from K through to university, actually, for about 40 years as well. A teacher librarian by trade, so the kind of program that we have developed with the Teen Quest actually aligns very much with Karen's and my love of inquiry learning. And yes, I'm really looking forward to helping develop and deliver this particular course.
Great, thanks Leonie. Now I'll just share my screen. So I usually have my tag team telling me if I've got the wrong screen, but I think all's good. We've got the thumbs up, yes. We use a few little hand gestures with our kids when we're working with them so that everybody knows what's happening. So I'll just get things just a little bit bigger screen for you if I can. There we go. So with this particular program, this is what we're going to be covering with you for this presentation. First of all is this importance, particularly now in our contemporary society, of the need for future ready skills to be integrated into learning programs, whether they be in a homeschooling environment, a traditional schooling situation, or even for what we're doing at Genius School. And even now, I think in the workplace, there is a need for this to be constantly in place, so that people with this massive change and rapid change, we need to be future ready all the time. And then the approach to inquiry-based learning, and I'll just make a reference here. I'll acknowledge my folk and colleagues in the United States, where it's the term is inquiry learning. So my apologies, but we'll stay with inquiry learning because that just rolls off my tongue a lot easier. But an inquiry learning approach does really allow the focus to be on the student and to stimulate their curiosity and their imagination, their wonderment. So they start to lead their learnings. They start to take charge of the way that they want to learn and the pace and what they were going to be learning. And then for us and everybody, I think it's when we know that our passions and our strengths and our capabilities and our skills are all aligned on purpose, that actually stimulates and excites us and makes us really want to engage in whatever learning is happening. And then we'll also share with you the Genius School approach of how we're putting all of this together in the Teen Quest program. Now, throughout the session here, please key your questions in. Angie and Leonie are going to be keeping an eye on those. So when there's questions there, we'll be able to stop and take those and answer anything that you might have in place as we go through. I might also add too that at the end, I will give you a link to these slides. So it does mean that you can sit back and you can listen to what's happening and just jot down the things that really stand out for you for this particular broadcast. So first of all, let's consider why it's important. The global world that we are in at the moment, of course, we're all aware, is changing very rapidly and it's shifting, and it's to a certain extent a little bit chaotic. But within that, there has been a number of drivers that have changed the way that we live and we work and that we play, and the way that we engage even in our learning. So these three key drivers here, I think, are important for us to acknowledge, not only for ourselves, but for the young people that we are associated with. So the very first thing is automation. And it's not rocket science that robotics, artificial intelligence, all of those things are taking over the low skill areas of work that are repetitive, that are frequently done, that can be managed by some type of programming or some situation where it doesn't require a higher level of thinking. But the important thing to note is that 90% of future jobs require digital literacy. And I'm not quite sure whether you're familiar with what that is, but in the best term I can give you is it's being able to know how to access and use and source and filter information within a digital environment and using the digital tools that are out there, whether it be an internet-based platform, social media, mobile devices, but it's going to require us to be more tech savvy, more cognitive and knowledgeable about the way that we're using information in the world of work and also our lives. Then there's the globalization. And what we've seen is because of all of that technology that's available to us now, anyone out there can put things up onto the internet, or they can create something and deliver their business, or they can engage and communicate with people from around the world. So when we bring that down to the impact that will have on our future generation, and even for us, is that jobs now can be easily outsourced. It means that people from anywhere can put in I guess, a contract or an expression of interest or whatever it might be, or a resume to say, hey, I want to do this work for you. And so it doesn't mean that we're just employing locally or that we're getting access to people who are within even our own nation. We can access in this globalization the people who have the skills and the capabilities around the world. So it seems to be that we need to start thinking about how do we skill our kids so that they can be just as competitive in this environment as much as anyone else can. And then, of course, the last part is the flexibility of work. And there's a whole shift that is happening whereby we're going to see that we're going to have a percentage of the workforce, and it will grow, who are going to be engaged in flexible work. So what do we mean by that? It means casual work, part-time work, gig work, portfolio work, project, contract work, rather than being in a full-time job. But also too, it can mean that they can start their own business. And Angie kind of referred to our Young Entrepreneur Academy program, where we have young people who are starting their own businesses within this current pandemic crisis environment. So this is all very important for us to consider getting our kids future ready for what is happening out there in the workforce. So just to put a different spin on this, we can look at the risks and the opportunities. So very first thing, let's look at the kind of the downside. And that is that the risk is that there can be an increase in unemployment, but there can also be an increase in underemployment. So if I think about the pathway that a student may take now in a traditional sense and go off to university and so forth, what we're seeing is that some of these young people are actually graduating, but there is no job. So they are then seeking work and they're underemployed. So they might be a civil engineer and end up being a coffee barista because they're needing work. We've seen the crisis situation, for example. Most obvious is people who are working in the airline industry are no longer flying planes. They're out doing bike repairs or wherever they can be in work. And where I am in Australia here, we've got a lot of people who have actually hit the road, and in Australia we're allowed to move around. So some of these people who are still unemployed are actually out there doing jobs that they're not actually trained for, but they're learning on the job. And then we start to see then the risk that there is this growing divide between the skilled and unskilled. So the automation means that people who are low skilled or unskilled, their jobs are going to be taken over. So there's this need to start learning and earning and creating at a very young age, as well as us for adults. And so the last point, I guess, flows on from that. There's this sort of uncertainty, insecurity are the risks. But if we flip the coin and we look at the opportunities, what this whole sense of globalization, automation, flexible jobs means it provides lots of opportunities where we've got the barriers to entrepreneurship are falling away. As I said, we've got the technology available, we've got the connectivity, we've got the networking, we've got all the tools out there and the resources that allow us to start to build our own businesses or start to engage in connecting with others to support them, even to grow their business. And so all our young people, if they can get their future skill ready situation, they're ready to enter a workforce that will be willing and available for them, which connects into those two next points, that there's a lot more flexibility out there of how and where we work. We don't need to be working in our local community. I know for myself, I'm kind of really a digital entrepreneur these days and a virtual entrepreneur. So I'm working totally from my home and using the technology that we're using this evening to run my own business. So young people can develop these skills and this understanding and capability to do the same. And the other part is the wider markets. You're not limited to something that is just within a geographical location. You're able to have a wider outreach. And also too, that if you can niche and specialize, which means that you can really develop your portfolio to get into that flexible working environment. There's been a number of reports that have come out which consider the pace of what is happening here. And so this particular report is more about young people, and it came out back in about 2017. And I was a bit cheeky. I did take the smart learning, smart thinking, smart doing as a theme for our masterclass, because it kind of resonates with what we're doing and the way that we can weave this through the whole future ready skill development environment. But what it's saying here is that by 2030, our young people are going to need these work smarts. They're going to need to be able to know, for a start, in that concept of smart learning, they're going to need to know how they learn on the job, not wait until someone teaches them something. They're going to need to seek the opportunity. So we need to give them the skills of how they can learn smarter in that space. And then the next one is the smart thinking. So this is all about these future ready skills. They're going to have to be able to engage in critical creative thinking, problem solving, being able to communicate in a diverse, interconnected global environment, be able to develop ways of connecting interpersonally with people, understanding people, but also too how to pace themselves. There's a lot of things that they're going to need to learn here to be smart thinkers. And then finally, this point here of the smart doing is, as they're going through that pathway, then how do they apply this smart learning, smart thinking, and it's in their doing, how they actually engage in work and life, play, whatever it might be. But the interesting thing here is the report talks about these entrepreneurial mindsets. So there's going to be less of the traditional labor intensive, do this in a logical way. There's going to be need for people to be more responsive and flexible and resilient to what is happening in the world. So there's different reports that have come out that support that whole basis that are more recent. This particular report from the World Economic Forum, which was published early last year, and it's a pre-COVID report, but it's interesting to see that it's reflecting the changes that need to happen. And in this report, it talks about schools of the future, and it gives examples of schools that are already out there who are making a change from a traditional way of delivering curriculum and syllabus and content to something that is more personalized, that's more focused at connecting with where the kids are, where we can take them to. So down the right-hand side here, this talks about the experiential learning that they will have in that space. So it is connected to them to be more personalized. They can go at their own pace and their own capability in that way. It is a more authentic learning in that it's inclusive and it's accessible. They're engaging in learning that is not about being fed the information. They're engaging in learning where they have to actually start thinking and asking the right questions as they go through. And they're developing these lifelong skills. And then over this side is a categorization in many ways of the content, but it's the skills that sit behind the content. So it's actually opening up more for what these students would engage in if we look at an Education 4 framework. And we may even be, with the rapid changes, going to even an Education 5 framework because of the shift that's changing, in that we have this whole blend now of remote learning, distance learning, in school, out of school, hybrid learning. It's all happening at a pretty rapid pace to keep abreast of the changes that are happening. Then in this one here, this particular report is actually a more recent report, and it was only kind of midway through last year or towards the latter part of the year. But if you can see here, this report back here talked about skills in 2030, and that was back in 2017. This is a recent report. And so what we see is the need for future-ready skills for our kids is accelerating. There's this creative tension where it's just happening at a rapid pace. And that's for all of us. I'm not just talking here, well, I'm talking specifically about teens and tweens and young adults, because that's the area that I work in. But I'm also thinking here about, us as adults as well. We can't neglect these in any way whatsoever. So the smart learning, smart thinking, smart doing does sit nicely against these particular skills. So if you think about the smart learning, this is where we see this self-management. So we've got active learning and learning strategies, and we need to make sure that we are actually teaching the kids how to learn so that they can take charge of their learning and step forward in that. But also what's called our soft skills is developing this resilience and stress tolerance and flexibility, because they will need to learn how to, I guess, function within an ever-changing, maybe chaotic environment. And then our smart thinking skills are linked to their category they've got here for problem solving. So these are our analytical skills, our problem solving, our critical thinking, our analysis, creativity. And it's interesting the other words they put in here that and showing initiative, being original, and down here looking at the reasoning, problem solving, ideation. So it's coming up with, I guess, prototypes that will bring about change within our world. And then there's the smart doing, which is then how do you apply all this? So this is looking at using the technology to apply all of that and designing and programming, but then also to bring in this last element here, which is allowing our young people to feel that they're valued and have worth, and that they can be change makers and have some social influence. And if you think about it, we have seen that in many scenarios where we have young people who are designing things to get rid of the rubbish out of the ocean, or we talk about, the bye-bye plastic bag movement. So we've got young people who are driving that. So in many locations around the world, we have young people who are really stepping up and utilising their skills to take on this leadership social influence. So I might just check in, Leonie, we've got any questions? Because I'll move on to the next part, but we just check in about the future ready skills.
Yes, Karen, we've had a few mainly queries about the year, the age that these skills can be developed. And I just put a comment in the box that many of these skills, and again, this is the Australian context, but a lot of these skills are actually in the Australian curriculum as the general capabilities, and they're actually mapped from K right through to 10. So obviously they're at a much simplified level, but there is the acknowledgement, even things like the resilience. Technology is used in kindergarten with iPads, even coding and those sorts of things, the critical thinking, problem solving, there's evidence of it right from K, and they are strategically placed in the Australian curriculum as well. So any age level, obviously you would customise the content and the level of complexity to the age of the students.
Yes, yes. And in other curriculum too, there are different terminologies used, like there's essential learning, Common Core, the ISTE standards. I'm trying to think of others, but there's different, every country in the world has some way that they're trying to look at integrating this into their curriculum. And it's all about incremental steps. So we're introducing the kids, but for us, we're seeing that it's the teens who are coming through, and many of them we find when they get into, say, a vocational or higher education, they're actually struggling because they don't have these skills. It hasn't been made available to them for them to develop, even though it might be written into a school curriculum. It's a case of, is it being effectively delivered? And that's really where we're trying to focus. And one way that we're looking at that, and this is where I was saying before, the inquiry or inquiry-based learning, it is actually a process which allows the child to take some ownership. And that can be at any particular age, but more so when we have children who are in that kind of 12 to 14 and on, that's when they're starting to become more developed in their cognitive ability to know how they learn and the type of questions they need to ask and how they engage. So they know what it is to be socially interactive. They know what it is to ask questions. In fact, parents, you will know that the question why is probably something that's constantly saying. And as an educator, it's something that I was constantly asked by the kids, why do I need to do this, miss? Why do we do that? So, I mean, that's just a common thing. But with the inquiry-based learning, the key part here is this questions and wondering. And it's really a case of, in this type of environment, the educator becomes more of the facilitator of learning rather than feeding the knowledge out to the students. If it's inquiry, that's questions that they're asking to explore all the things that they're really interested in, which then can be aligned to curriculum, but it's opening up their minds to what is out there. And for them to connect with their own curiosity, their own sense of discovery, their own passions. And as you can see there, it says that it helps them to investigate, solve, and draw conclusions. And when they do that, it's more in a case of their taking some ownership of their pathway of learning. And all that we're doing as educators is kind of facilitating that. And a term used in education is to scaffold. So if you think of a scaffold, it's a structure that supports, say, the building of a construction. It's the same here, providing them with the tools, the resources, the strategies and the methodologies for them to be able to investigate and explore what they're passionate about in this space. Now, within Genius School, we're aware that there are multiple inquiry-based frameworks out there. Some of them are fairly short. There might be 3 steps to the inquiry framework, or there might be 7 or 8. But for us, we have adopted this particular framework, which is called Guided Inquiry Design. And our reasoning behind that is it's supported by evidence-based practice and research, which has looked at the way young people engage with information and how their information engagement processes are also have some social and emotional intelligence impact as well. And being aware of, I guess, the up and down journey as they're learning, they might be feeling overwhelmed at a point. It's knowing when to come in and facilitate their learning to allow them to move on and providing them with the resources and tools. So just as an example, what I might do is I might just pop this into the chat so that you have this if you want to go and look at it yourself. So just bear with me while I grab that and put it into the chat, the link. So this is where you can go and have a look at this particular framework, because this is supporting this whole concept of embracing the curiosity of young people, but guiding them through that whole learning process. And with any framework that's around inquiry or inquiry, it requires them to use these open-ended questions. And when they're using open-ended questions, it means that they're actually getting a broader answer, not a simple true, false, or a yes, no, or right, wrong. They're actually opening their minds to the quality information or quality response they can get by asking these questions. So we approach this as a core basis around all of our programs, is to get the children to be constantly aware that by asking these questions, they will be able to explore all sorts of opportunities, not just engaging with their schoolwork, but for our young entrepreneurs, it's looking at exploring business opportunities. For our younger people in our camps, it's looking at, well, what are some things that we can bring about to help change the world, to make it a better place. So all of this is all evident through that inquiry process and using the questions. So you might think about this for yourself. You know, when are the times when you could actually get a better answer if you're in a workplace, for example, by thinking about the question, an open-ended question that you would ask someone to get more information that you need. Because when we're asking these open-ended questions, we're actually able to make more informed decisions about what's happening as we go through. So sorry, yeah.
there's a great question from Angela that while you're on this topic, asking that in the school she used to teach in, most of the students struggled with inquiry-based learning because they had no curiosity. And how do we help them develop that curiosity and that wanderlust for learning? And it's just whilst you're on that topic, it'd be for you to talk about.
Good.
Can I just interrupt there? I did put a little post up there, but what I find in terms of the programs, inquiry programs that work really well, are where the students are given, as Karen mentioned, the scaffolding, and they are given the choice of the topics that they can do as well. It's got to connect with them. They've got to be emotionally invested in what it is that they're doing their inquiry about. And what often happens is they're forced to do a specific topic within the curriculum. It's very structured. It has a set outcome, and it's something that they just go through the process of doing. So I think a lot of it depends on how the inquiry is created, and how inspired and excited the teacher is as well. A lot of it will come from the teacher providing that enthusiasm, but it's also the way that it's actually all put together in terms of how successful it would be. And I find that when children are really invested emotionally in it, and they're given the choice of the topic that they do, that makes all the difference in the world.
It does. And at Genius School, with our programs, we have a way that we do that, that we spark their curiosity and we get them engaged in what they want to learn. And, you know, that we do that through focusing on their passions and their purpose and really what excites them. And in our programs too, we use the United Nations Global Sustainability Goals. So as a tool to get them thinking bigger. And we often find that when students are struggling with what inquiry to follow, giving them a real life problem to solve, that is something they care about, is often a great way to get them focused. So Karen, did you want to add any more to that?
I will add a little bit more later, picking up on some of those points that you've both raised. But yes, definitely, if the one key thing I would say is try within your current schooling environment is to have some flexibility. I know the terminology crowded curriculum is there, but if you have some flexibility, even for a moment, to get that curiosity going. So it might be that you're doing something that is definitely content curriculum related, but if there's some moment where a question is asked that allows you to then maybe do a little bit of deviation to explore that. So it could be something that they're talking about, and then you say, oh, okay, bees. So, you know, well, let's think about the importance of bees. What do we know about bees? And so if I go to this process here, this very first step, if I open that up, it's probably hard to see, but it's this invitation to inquiry and stimulating. So it's opening their minds. So with our curriculum, it tends to be too closed. It tends to be too content focused and not process focused. And these inquiry questions allow you to explore a process of learning, pardon me, not the actual content. So if you can build in flexibility, and it doesn't need to go off, it could be ended up being kind of an extracurricular thing or a club, or there's ways and means that you can allow students to explore different things by providing them with that opportunity. So just to give you an example of the power of inquiry learning for allowing kids to take charge of their learning is to explore this element here of where kids get their news from. And this is from a survey that was done back in 2019 with the Common Sense, which is a United States-based group. And they'd surveyed teenagers between the ages of 13 and 17 to find out where is the primary source of their information. And these are the results that they found. So the highest level is on social media. Now, I might be a little bit provocative here and say there's probably people who will be here now or listening where that may be where you get your percentage of news from. So you're getting it from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any sort of social media platform. And that's the primary source of information. And then that becomes the reality. That becomes a person's truth or their frame of reference. And I might just add here that I know we've all heard the term fake news in various forums, but I might just add here, the term fake news is not new. It didn't suddenly emerge in the last few years. Fake news has been around since the ancient Egyptians and Romans, when they would tell the people that they won this battle or that this person was in disrepute. So there was misinformation, there was false news sent out to people, and it was, trying to keep the people on certain side. So what they call this is vertical thinking. So if our primary source of information is only from one avenue, one media channel, it's a vertical way of thinking. So here, 50% of the kids got it from YouTube. And of course, here they're saying, well, YouTube did a push notification. And so the news I got was from celebrities, influencers, and personalities. So again, that becomes the child's reality. Then here we've got the print and online news through news organisations, and their response was they felt more confident about these news feeds. And then, of course, at a lower level, it's what they get through the TV. Now, what we can do is we could leave it at that, but we would be doing a disservice to our young people by not getting them to actually adopt what we would call an inquiry-based approach to this, whereby they get the same news story and then they apply the open-ended questioning. So let's take that they get the news story from social media in the first instance, because that's the highest percentage, but then we encourage them through an inquiry to go to other news sources with the same news story and to compare and contrast, to look at what is similar, what is different, and to apply the open-ended questioning. So it might be, what message is this trying to send me? Who is sending this message? What authority do they have? When was this actually published? Is it current, or has it been construed to appear that it's a recent news event? So by asking these open-ended questions, and they're exploring something like a news story and across multiple platforms, not just one, we start to raise that higher level of thinking and have them more discerning users of information, rather than just accepting, oh, I heard this on on my Facebook feed, or I saw this on a YouTube video. It's actually getting them to do this lateral thinking, which is this concept of going broad. So have a news story, check it all out across a number of different platforms, and look at the similarities and differences, because then you will pick up, what is misinformation, what is disinformation, what is fake news, what is, what is truth. I mean, there's all different interesting terminology there. And then when you're ready, you then go deep. When you've found a source where there's similarity of information, then you go deep. So if you're wanting to explore that a bit further, you can actually, again, use the open-ended questions to go deeper into following that information through. So some of the benefits that we see with inquiry-based learning is that it does endorse the importance of asking questions and asking open-ended questions, but it also brings into play the importance of young people developing the future-ready skills. So developing those smart learning, knowing how to learn at their best, how to learn easier, knowing the strategies that they can put in place, knowing the different tools that they can use, knowing the different skills that are there for them, but also too how they then can apply that learning and using their thinking, and then also apply it further to being smart in their doing. It also recognises the prior knowledge. So it starts them off with the point of, okay, let's look at what you might be curious about. Let's look at opening your mind up. What do you already know? What do you want to know? And then it builds then on their prior knowledge of what they may understand about something. And then it also motivates and engages, because they're the ones who are asking the question. They're the ones who are engaging in the investigation and the exploration and the discovery. And with young people, with the technology they have available to them, they can have more social interaction. And that means that, they're questioning, they're connecting, they're working collaboratively together to solve problems or to engage in learning spaces. And it, as Angie said, it's connecting their passion and their talents what they love, what they really would love to learn about, what they're capable of doing. And it's connecting that along the way, as we said, the incremental learning that we build in place, so that every learner is starting at a point where they experience success because we have the tools in place. So the kids are engaged in this active learning, not this passive receipt of information that might come to them when we think about a traditional learning environment, and they're getting to experience it. So we're connecting them to real life, authentic in situations where we're saying to them, let's look at this. So that connection to the United Nations Sustainable Goals is one avenue that we pursue. And we look at getting them to start to own their learning. So they're the ones who then, with the scaffolding, with this facilitation that we do, they begin to take charge of the direction that they want to take. And in this particular contemporary environment we're in now, it does give these kids a voice. And any reading that I've done around this is that most young people feel that in this whole crisis and pandemic, that their voice has not been heard. They are having adults telling them what they can and cannot do and what they should do. And by getting kids to engage in this inquiry, they're actually gaining a voice of the direction for their future. And so we connect in here the concept of ikigai in everything that we do. And again, we can overlay the open-ended questions to this as well. So this is where Angie was saying before, what are you good at? What do you love doing? What excites you? What would you like to explore? And then, what does the world need? How do you think you can be involved? When do you think this needs to happen? Who do you want to join you on this journey of discovering what the world might need and how we can go about solving it? So again, it's asking those open-ended questions. And here I like this, it's a journey of self-discovery. So we provide the pathway that the child can navigate, and we just kind of nudge them along, give them the tools, guide them along the way, provide the framework for them to learn so that they are getting their own things that excite them, that they feel passionate about, that they love doing, that they're good at. All of that is coming into play. And of course, this concept of, what they might get paid for, we also explore what it is that you could contribute that could make a difference. And it may be more an altruistic thing. If you think of things like random acts of kindness, those are sorts of things. Well, what can you do? What could you set up within your community that could help somebody at this time? And we're seeing our young people in many cases are stepping up into this space. So just to do a quick summary here at this point, this is what we've kind of looked at the moment, is the future ready skills and the importance of integrating that, the inquiry-based approach that allows our young people to be more in charge of the direction and pace and how they're going to be learning, and adding and building to the knowledge that they need in this current environment. And then aligning, when we align our talents and passions and our purpose, it does excite young people, and it does stimulate their natural curiosity and also their creativity. And every child is naturally creative. We just need to be supporting them in that whole process. So I might just stop sharing screen before we go to the last part and see whether there's any questions that anyone might have that Angie or Leonie have picked up in the chat.
Well, I mean, I think we talked about this before. Leonie's made a comment here too, that we need to do this for teachers. And Karen and I were talking about this program for parents and educators. So most definitely, I think we do need to do that. So also, Angela says, how do you assess and report on this? And that's a really interesting question that I know, Karen, you'll be able to answer really well.
Well, it's always the common thing that there's always, well, how do we assess this? Because it's not connected to a content cognitive knowledge measurement. And that is really the challenge that faces the current educational system. And we have to kind of rethink the whole process of what are we really assessing here? Are we assessing the personal development and growth of a child, or are we assessing their cognitive knowledge? And are we assessing how they apply their learning to bring about authentic change? So it is a challenge in our current education system to know how these, I guess, soft skills, or how these skills can be measured And it really is a case of looking at, if you're doing something in this case where it's a project base, it's what is a deliverable that a child could do at a certain point, and have they completed the task, and to what level have they completed the task? Rather than saying this is a right answer or a wrong answer, it's the level of engagement. So it could be, you can set up like matrices, which means that, you know, you're saying that the child, if they do this, they're at this level. If they do this a little bit extra, they're at that level. So you can actually develop criterias whereby you're given these matrices, which are a continuum of learning, and you're looking at measuring where these kids are at, but then not leaving them saying, oh, you know, you've got a B plus here. It's getting them to also learn how to reflect on their learning, learn to reflect on the process they've engaged in, learn to reflect on the knowledge they've gained, and also learning to reflect on themselves as a learner.
Karen, can I just also interrupt? I know we've got people from all around the world, but for those that are in Australia, many of these skills are actually in the Australian curriculum. So you've got the critical and creative thinking, general capabilities, you've got the technology ones as well. And there's also process strands in HASS that capture a lot of the sorts of skills that we're talking about. The unfortunate thing is they are scattered all over the place, but you can actually find examples where people have pulled them, taken the inquiry model and then mapped it to some of those areas. So I know that's not the case in all countries, but within Australia in particular, there are some of those mapping documents that are actually around, but a lot of the skills from inquiry are, they are in the Australian curriculum. The other thing too is internationally, they're starting to recognise more and more the importance of these skills, and PISA in particular, whereas they've had the literacy and numeracy skills, they've actually got a collaborative problem-solving test now as part of the PISA skills that are disseminated throughout the world. So there is that recognition that these soft skills are becoming important, and there is a trend for trying to capture those, and PISA is driving sort of the bandwagon on that one. So I think it's very difficult, and that's why they haven't been mapped in the past, because they call them soft skills for a reason. They're not soft skills at all. They're very hard skills and very important skills, but I think it's this nebulous nature of them that make them very, very difficult to connect and map.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me share with you the journey that we take in trying to address, some of the questions that you've raised about, getting the kids to engage. So just checking that I'm sharing the right screen there, Angie. Right, thumbs up, thank you. So this is our particular program that we are running later this year. As you see, it's in April and May, and it's not a 4-week solid. We'll get to this in a moment. But this is a program that is all designed around helping the kids to develop these skills, but in an authentic and realistic way. And, Leonie and I will be doing what we've been talking about, guiding and facilitating and scaffolding their learning so that they're developing these skills through these particular stages and learning how to become digitally literate, how to become a global citizen, how to do the research and how to do like this analytical thinking and the data analysis, and how to take a leadership role, how to step up and look at, making some changes and being creative and being a change maker at a young age and having that leadership and social influence. So within the program, this is what they'll learn. And I might just go to this screen. It might be a bit easier and bigger to see. But throughout this whole process, and this is where we've embedded the inquiry-based learning, we've also integrated the skills into this. And as Leonie has been referring to before, we're also making the curriculum connections, but not just from an Australian perspective where we're talking about general capabilities, but also in other locations, New Zealand key competencies, USA Common Core standards, the ISTE, the International Society of Education Technology standards, essential learning standards, which are sort of UK. So we're integrating and looking at all of these because our program is global. So we have to be a little bit smarter in how we work with this. So to a certain extent also too, we look at some of the global documentation about skills as well. So this is what is happening here in these learning outcomes through the Teen Quest program, that they're looking at this emerge, or first of all, it's opening their mind to looking at the global issues and challenges. You know, what's out there, what's happening. Let's do a bit of a brain dump and find out what's going, what excites you, what interests you, what concerns you, maybe what frightens you. You know, let's look at how we can even solve some of this, and then bring in the thinking skills to start developing an understanding and immersing them. And this is where we would guide them to resources that are qualified resources. They're resources that help them to understand, to build on their prior knowledge, and then using the 5 W's in how to say, well, let's look at a specific problem that you might be interested in relation to the United Nations Sustainable Goals, because there's 17 of the goals, and all of those have different aspects to them that can allow the child to say, well, I'm interested in what's happening in our marine life, or I'm interested in knowing and concerned about, you know, the equality of girls in the world, or I'm interested in knowing that, you know, people should have access to education, or there's a whole range. It's just massive what they can explore here. And then looking at the key questions, coming up with a thought or a hypothesis. Hypothesis is more for our senior students. And then we dive deep into their chosen problem and giving them the tools whereby they can do that. This area here is where we're starting to also have some technology, some research skills, some tools there that they can use. And we're going to be giving them some templates and resources that they can use not only for this program that they're with us, but also they can use beyond. So it's looking at resources and questions and learning how to curate, learning how to capture, learning how to go through and say, well, is this content relevant to what I'm looking at? Is it authoritative? Using all those aspects of exploration with the open questions, then looking at how they can categorize, synthesize the information, and then how they can then design something that's going to be creative and persuasive, that people will be saying, wow. And we do actually get mind-blowing outcomes with the kids in our other programs as well. They just come up with this information and we go, I cannot believe that in 2 or 3 hours they have pulled this presentation together. Because these kids, and I believe that our current generation of young people are really passionate about their future and what's happening within the world. And so if we can give them the voice and guide them in a way that helps them to be a more discerning user of information, and then to put it out there and create a persuasive presentation that will bring about change, not only for themselves, but for their community. And then, as I was mentioning before, we don't just leave it there. We just don't go, okay, we finished that. Let's move on to the next content of the curriculum. We get them to reflect so that they can learn then how to use the resources, the skills, their knowledge that they have developed to move into and transition into another space. So it's reflecting on the process, it's reflecting on the experience, the knowledge, and also about themselves as a learner. And that is done in more of a collaborative group environment. So that's what we have happening there. And then just to add it up a notch, we also support them in this area of design thinking, because this is the level of operation that we need to be at for the future of our world, is that we need to be really honed in on this designing the right thing, but also designing it right. And this is where we bring in lots of other different thinking. So there's the problem, it's opening up. So this is the emergent, divergent thinking. It's then exploring it. So then coming down with what we call convergence. So we're bringing them into a specific problem definition, and then allowing them to go off and look at this testing, exploring, looking at gathering the information and the data, then coming up with a solution, and then in their persuasive presentation, they're coming back into this convergent thinking. So the design thinking also sits behind the whole program that we're doing. So what do you actually get in the program for your child? And as Angie said, it's really, adults and other people maybe need to be connected in with this. And this is why we actually encourage you to be involved with your child. So you have one registration, but it's you and your child coming on this journey, because we believe that it's important for parents to also understand how to support their child. So it's a 4-week expert guidance. It's a commitment of 1 to 2 hours on a Monday to Friday. Tuesday and Thursday are some masterclasses, and we've got time zones there where this happens. If the time zone doesn't quite fit, then we do open up opportunities for a smaller group individual connections so that the kids aren't missing out. They also have access to an online learning resource environment, and this is actually an environment that we leave them in for as long as they want to be there. It doesn't end after the 4 weeks, because it's in this environment they will have access to tools and templates that they can use in other environments. We also have personalised small group learning support sessions. And this is really when they get into the nitty-gritty of individualising their learning and becoming more independent in the pathway they're taking. They get the chance to connect with like-minded teens. So other kids out there who are in the same mindset of, hey, you know, we want to step up here. We want to make a difference. We want our voice to be heard. We want to learn how to do this and be smarter in our learning, thinking and doing. And then we also have their profile report, which identifies very clearly where their natural capabilities and talents lie. And it's a very highly accurate profiling tool that we use, but it also covers a whole lot of other things as well. Leadership, communication, how they learn, all those sorts of things is in there as well. Now, one exciting thing that we have to share is there's a whole growing group of teens out there who are joining us on this journey. And we get so excited to see where these kids go after they've spent some time with us. So Ben was in our program last year, and this is what his mum says here, that she believes youth leadership. And so this event, which Ben organised, was a young entrepreneur summit by young entrepreneurs. Now, Ben is 14, 15, and so he got together a whole group of young people. So all of these young people here are either change agents or they are young entrepreneurs. And he brought together this program, which gave them the voice and allowed them to be articulate about the changes and the things that they see that can make a difference to our society. And so, as I said, there's a growing group of teens who are really developing these future-ready skills. They're developing an entrepreneurial mindset. They're actually thriving in this crazy world we're living at the moment, whether it be in education or in their work. And you and your team can be part of this education movement. And so here, this is Ben and Alex and Luke. They have been 3 students who have been with us. And so in this particular situation, Alex is one of our students, and he was a winner in doing his business pitch, which meant he had to be persuasive in getting his message across. So the tools and the program and the things that we do is just really dynamic for these kids. So you and your teen, or if you don't have a teen, but you know a young person who could benefit this, or maybe you know, you are an educator and you're thinking you've got kids in your school who could really benefit. I'm going to get one of the team to put a link into the chat there where you can book a discovery call with one of our Genius team to explore this opportunity for what can be offered for your child. And if you are an educator, you might have kids in your school that you think, well, they could really benefit from this. So again, have a conversation with us. I mean, we do have our early application rate here, but conversations with us, we can explore all different opportunities. And maybe you're an adult of a teen and you think, maybe my kid, I just don't know whether, you know, they would come in on this. As an adult, you might enroll anyway and have your child be supported by you through the whole learning space. So there's all different ways that you can be engaged in this particular program. So it's the self-paced micro course, which is facilitated. So it's guided through how they need to engage with the content and the modules. Then there's the masterclasses where they're spending time with Leonie and myself and some of the other educators to support what's happening. And then there's also the learning platform where they will have tools that they can come back to. There's also a private circle or discussion forum space where it's only them and we control who is in there. We encourage them, and in fact in the lead up to this program we're going to be putting some information in there as the kids enroll and we get them engaged. There's the profile test, and we're also, we're also putting in the profile test for the parents as well. And this is important because some of us make assumptions about our kids. And so when we do the profile test, it's a case of you can see where you may be a little bit different to your child, but in understanding that, you gain a higher level of self-awareness to that process. So I might just stop the sharing and just see if anyone has any questions, because I'm aware we're right at the top of our time here.
We've got some great comments in here, Karen, very positive, affirming comments, but I don't see any particular questions. Somebody has asked about the currency, so I've answered that, you, Liz, sorry. So the currency is US dollars, just in case it's a question in anyone else's mind. And also Penny has posted the link if anybody's interested and wants to book a call.
Yeah, as I said, actually, I might do this now while I think of it, seeing as I did make that promise to everybody. I can't be naughty and not do it, can I? So in the chat, just need to bring this across. So what I'm going to do is the masterclass slides. Just got to get my fingers working on the right keyboards here. Would be remiss of me to misspell something, wouldn't it? So here we go. So if you want to go to that link, you'll be able to download the slides, and in that you will have certain links that you can go to where you can actually explore the information a little bit more. But definitely, you know, take the time while it's fresh in your mind to even just have a call to talk about what are the opportunities here, what could happen here, in what way. Oops, sorry. Yes, thanks, Will. I just realised I sent it privately to someone. My apologies. I'm really great that, Will, you're there to pick us up on that. Fantastic. So there we go. Hopefully everybody has access now to that link. Good. Thank you. Thanks, Will. Appreciate that. So that way then you can go back, you can look at it, you know, go through the information. But yeah, please just make a call and say, okay, I want to explore how this could be possible for my child or for a teen that I know. And you may even have a teen that you think, hey, gee, you know, I really want to step up here and make a difference to a young person's life as well. So
Karen, somebody did post, I'm sorry, I just can't see the post now. Have we ever run this program for at-risk youths? So that was from Michael. Yes.
We have run some of our Genius program for at-risk children, and they, in most cases, have been sponsored to participate in the program. I have to say that we have probably, you know, like an 80 to 85% attendance rate. And if you looked at those hours, they're kind of out of the regular school hour time. And we have kids who are showing up. They diligently, religiously turn up for all of the classes. And they even let us know if something happens that they can't come, and we make sure they get the recording. We also offer the opportunity for them to connect in with us so they don't feel as if they're missing out, you know, the FOMO experience. So we make sure that we're connecting with the kids all along the way for their experience with us.
And also, Will asks a question. He's already enrolled in the Education 5.0 program. Is the content parallel? So my understanding is that it's quite different.
Yes. Yes, the Education 5.0 is more for the adults, and this is more for the young people, but also we encourage the parent to be involved as well, because I think from what we've presented, you may also see the value of being future ready yourself and learning this whole concept of what it is to be digitally literate. If we're all going to be spending 30% of our work life learning on the job, then let's develop the skills of what it is to know how you can do that for yourself as well, but definitely then support your children through that process.
And a question, doesn't it conflict with the 5.0 program time?
Only on a couple of days. If I go back to, let me go back to sharing this slide, because as I said, it is, come back here. I mentioned that this is a self-paced facilitated micro course. So it means that the child can access that at their own time. But because we try to keep to some times, it's more assisting them to know that if they can be in that space, we will also be online in this private discussion. So as they're engaging with the module, we'll be in the private discussion information space. But if that time doesn't suit, then it's still a case of they can access the facilitated self-paced module, but still put their questions into the private discussion, because we will be in there daily and answering any questions that they would put in there for us to follow up and be supporting them. So it is very personalised in the way that we're delivering and engaging and connecting with our learners.
Okay, and sorry, Karen, another question. Are there any other time periods in case April or May doesn't suit? Is a question from Rosa.
Well, yes, we run this program at least twice a year. So if you stay connected with us, we will let you know when the next program will be running towards probably the end of the year, probably around maybe in October. Haven't quite decided on the date yet, because everything we try to pace, because we are very keen to be engaging kids in an incremental learning process. So that means we start them off at a foundation level where they get to understand all the things and the philosophy and learning behind what we do at Genius School. Then we build them up to another level and then keep taking them through a process where they're constantly building on the skills that they're learning. So it's always focused on setting them up for success and inspiring their future.
Thanks.
So no more questions? Okay, so yeah, I just might get Penny, if you're still there, if you just want to pop in that link again so that people can grab it if they want to book a call. So it's a great opportunity to have further discussion with our team, who can then explore all these different opportunities for you, so that you can consider, you know, what is the opportunity that we can provide young people, and particularly your child or a young person that you know.
Cool, and I've just posted the link, so because the call will close, if anybody is interested in booking a call, just grab that link while it's on the screen.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I appreciate that you've given us your time, and I hope that you have picked up a magic moment or something that you have learnt that you didn't actually know before. So some of those key points, we really encourage you to put that into practice, so that you also experience some success of being this amazing genius smart, learning smart, thinking smart person as well. So thanks very much. And it is, well, it's good evening, but it might be good mid-morning or good afternoon, or wherever it is in your particular time zone. And for those who are listening to the recording, thank you for being with us and staying till the end as well. So bye to everybody, and we'll stay in contact. Thanks.